When we talked about what is the vision and national service, I think it does not begin or should not begin at the high school level. I think it needs to go to the primary school level.
Leveraging and launching our creative industries in the country.
That's gotten mixed reviews.
Well, I think what got mixed reviews is not the concept, but the labeling.
What we do today will affect those coming after us.
Two prominent attorneys had their say in court today. They both say they're not guilty. The jury has found Stephen Dye Stubbs and his two co-accused guilty of murder and attempted murder. The DNA blasts the government for its handling of shantytown residents. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Keod, and this is NB12. Cable 12 Studios. Attorneys Keod Smith and Fred Smith have both pleaded not guilty to the charges against them stemming from an incident the two were allegedly involved in back in April at the site of the Clifton Heritage Park. They appeared separately before Acting Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt today. Paige McCartney reports.
Former Mount Moriah MP Keod Smith appeared first this morning, facing 3 charges. The first was for assault against attorney Fred Smith on April 25th at the Clifton Heritage Park. Smith is also accused of threatening to harm his law colleague on the same day and for causing $881 worth of damage to a 2012 Nissan Versa, the property of Hertz Rental Car Company. Earlier this week, Smith appeared in court, but the prosecution was not prepared to go ahead with the arraignment as the file was still under review by investigators at the Cable Beach Police Station. Smith pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges and elected to have his matter heard in the magistrate's court. That trial is scheduled to take place November 20th and 21st in court number 9 at 11 a.m. Outside court, Smith and his attorney Derek Ryan spoke to reporters and maintained his innocence, saying he will not be deterred because of the allegations being made against him.
Keod Smith was granted $1,500 bail based on his own recognizance and the fact that he's not a flight risk and he's an upstanding member of the community. But as he was leaving court, flanked by at least a dozen of his supporters, a few hours later, Frederick Smith was brought to court to face charges of his own.
Queens Counsel Fred Smith, who turned himself into the Cable Beach Police Station earlier this week, was also arraigned on the charge of causing harm to Mario Joffer in the Clifton area back on April 25th. He pleaded not guilty, but not before exclaiming in court that he feels his constitutional and human rights are being abused by the political system. Smith is being represented by 5 attorneys: fellow Queens Counsel J. Henry Bostwick, John Bostwick Jr., Ramon Ferreira, Roderick Malone, and Martin Lundy. Smith was granted $500 bail based on his own recognizance and that he was an upstanding member of the community. He returns to court December 10th and 11th for his trial, which will be heard in Magistrates Court number 9 at 11 a.m. For NB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Well, Stephen Dye Stubbs and 2 other men are expected to be sentenced in September after being convicted last night of the murder of a policeman and the attempted murder of another. Scores of armed police officers and supporters of the 3 men were outside the court last night. Jasmine Bonamy was also there, and she filed this report.
That verdict was handed down just before 8 p.m. and by 8:30, the 3 men were carted off to Her Majesty's prison in a convoy that included 7 police cars. The jury's unanimous decision came down after 3 hours of deliberations. The all-woman jury had been sequestered for the entire 9-week-long trial. The verdict marks the 2nd time Stubbs, Andrew Yogi Davis, and Clinton Russ Evans were convicted of the crimes that occurred in 1999. They were first convicted in 2002, but the appellate court ordered a retrial in 2004. While the defendants showed no emotions for the verdict, their relatives sobbed in court. Outside court, scores of heavily armed officers from Strike Force and SWAT stood guard as the court clerk prepared the warrants for the prison. As Stubbs left the court, his relatives shouted words of encouragement from where they stood on Parliament Street. Lawyers for two of the men spoke to the press shortly after the verdict was handed down. Muriel DeSeal, the lead lawyer for Stubbs, said he planned to file an appeal after the sentencing phase of the trial. Ramona Farquharson Seymour, who appeared for Evans, said she was shocked at the verdict. Ian Cargill, who appeared for Davis, did not comment.
There has been much adverse publicity in this case, and public opinion weighed very, very heavily. And that was one of our concerns from day one. Well, we have a date set for the sentencing. I think I may do that immediately after, because we have 21 days within which to file our appeal.
It's always a surprise when you can't convince at least one person, but again, they have spoken, 12 women, and they say all guilty, they're unanimous. Throughout, we've had concerns.
During the trial, lawyers for the trio submitted the prosecution had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. On the other hand, prosecutors told the jury that their decision must be based on the evidence from the witness box. The defendants did not testify, exercising their constitutional right to remain silent. Davis and Evans, who were on bail pending trial, were remanded to prison until sentencing on September 18th. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
5 murders recorded in 1 week. Police are investigating the latest killing that occurred after 10 o'clock last night in the Wolf Road, Peardale area. Police say the victim was found in a red Honda suffering from a gunshot wound to the upper body. Police say he was taken to hospital where he died. Now, regarding the other matters, 2 men were killed early Saturday morning. The third victim was stabbed to death during an altercation early Sunday morning, and a man was shot and killed Monday morning while at a club on Bay and Armstrong Streets. Now, earlier this month, police reported that murder decreased by 21% and overall crime dropped by 7%. Well, Baha Mar opens its lounge at Lyndon Pindley International Airport.
Officially open.
But first, a former government official estimates that Bahamians make up a significant percentage of the population of shanty towns. We'll be right back with that story.